Welcome to the Evolution of Leaders podcast. My name is Darwin Lee, and I am a coach and speaker. I'm the founder of the Evolution of Leaders. On this podcast, I'm interested in exploring the traits, habits, or behaviors that set apart elite performers through their stories and in their own words. Now, I had the pleasure of first coaching someone named Jordan Hulecki a number of years ago, dating back to 2010. At the time, he was a very fit individual, but just a recreational athlete, and it's been humbling and incredible to see him grow. On this episode today, I interview world dragon boat champion Jordan Hulecki. Now, he's the same person, humble, unassuming, but totally awesome. He's a long-standing member of Team Canada, first making the team in 2015. He was very coachable back when I first met him, I remember, and that has certainly carried him forward. He was cut on his first time going through the national team selection process, and it's interesting to hear how he views and frames failure. He's also a very successful lawyer, and listen to what he does when he gets home from work at 2 a.m. That's why he's the champ. I hope you enjoy this interview. Jordan, how are you?
Good, thanks, Darwin. How are you doing?
I'm good. And so as we get started here, can you just give us kind of 1 minute intro of yourself and your career?
Yeah, for sure. So as you mentioned, I've been dragon boating for probably about 10 years now. I spent 5 of those with the national team. I've been through a number of cycles with them. Started off just in a little rec team in Edmonton. Actually ended up being coached by Darwin for a number of years. Darwin was my very first competitive high-level coach, and a lot of his lessons have stuck with me over the years. I've since moved on to Calgary, where I've grown a bit of a career. I'm currently a lawyer at a national firm at the office down there. But still paddling, still racing. For those of you who aren't familiar with dragon boat, it's you might see on lakes and rivers around North America and the world, really. They're big long boats, 10 benches, 20 paddlers, so 2 people per bench. You got a drummer on the front, steers person on the back. Typically the boats are decorated to look like dragons. It's, I think, the Chinese national sport, very popular in East Asia, Southeast Asia, but also very popular in Canada and the States. And I think it's the fastest, or at least until this COVID business, was the fastest growing water sport in North America. So it's very popular at all levels: competitive, rec, corporate, big breast cancer following, breast cancer survivors, very popular with those guys. So yeah, that's the brief.
That's awesome. And so I remember seeing you for the first time, and clearly you had some fitness at the time, and we got talking and eventually asked you to join our competitive team. And so from there, can you take us through it? At the time you were paddling with a recreational team, and can you take us through kind of the steps from there to making the national team, what that was like?
Well, I wouldn't have got started on that track, I think, if not for a lot of the people that I met along the way. And I should probably just first qualify all this by saying I never started out with the intention of becoming a high-level dragon boat athlete or a high-level athlete of any description whatsoever. It was just something that really I sort of discovered. It was something fun to do, and I just happened to be really good at it. So the first lesson that I took from that is just keep an open mind, because you never know what's going to come out and surprise you. But you might be good at something that you never even knew existed. So, but having got into dragon boat, obviously first running into Darwin and all the wonderful people at Oil City Crew, just sort of showing me that there was this whole competitive universe out there that I could participate in, and that was a lot of fun. It was something that I really related to, that responded to a lot of aspects of my personality. And then having some teammates, notably Casey, Darwin, Casey, who had been on the national team in 2011. And, as proof that it could be done, that it was, jumping to that level was something that people like us in our little, we were a good team in Edmonton, but we were still, a relatively small pond. The people from our club and from our situation could make it to that level. So having him as an example, and getting to work with him and getting to work with Darwin and all that coaching experience, Darwin was or is, I guess, an experienced coach out of Vancouver originally, and has a lot of dragon boat knowledge that he was kind enough to pass on. That sort of gave me the idea to really go and take a serious shot at it. So I tried out unsuccessfully the first time, and for the 2013 national team. I had a little bit of fitness, but I was also about 40 pounds too heavy. I had decent technique, but it wasn't the technique the coaches were looking for. I didn't know the people. I just really didn't know what I was getting into. But just going through that 2013 experience, the tryouts, the extra coaching that I got, getting to know the coaches, getting to know the athletes, really sort of whetted my appetite to come back and try it again. And when I did go back in 2015, I had dropped a bunch of weight. I had taken advantage of some additional coaching opportunities that were offered by some of the national team coaches and others. I really learned from a lot of those experiences that I had at the 2013 tryouts. I realized what the expectations were. I realized what some of the technical pointers were that they were looking for. Coachability was a big thing. Like I really tried hard to, make myself into somebody that could be coached and could learn and implement new things. And when I came back and tried out a second time, I got some good feedback, and I ended up making the 2015 national team, and haven't looked back since. So, yeah.
So you did that really just in a few short years, and you've talked about quite a few things. If you could kind of pin down, one or two habits or practices that distinguished you the second time from the first time that you tried out but didn't make the team, what were those key things kind of? So one is, what I'm hearing is coachability for sure. And what's that look like you two?
I don't want to say it's a peculiarity to dragon boat, because like a lot of team sports have this sort of, because you have 20 people on the same boat, they might come from all parts of the country or from all different walks of life. They have different builds, they have different sizes. But at the end of the day, a big part of having a strong dragon boat team is that you have everybody with a similar technique, a similar stroke, that they're able to do the same thing together in a way that moves the boat forward. So you have, a team of 20 people moving the boat as opposed to 20 individuals doing their own thing and hoping that it moves forward. So coachability has always been very important at the national level, because there are people from so many different places. The coaches are looking for people that they can, like who might have some talent and some fitness and all that stuff, but who they can mold in accordance with what they need the team to look like. So they have the stroke that they want, they have the race plans that they want. They need, like what they need from you more than anything is the ability to fall into that plan, to change or to make the necessary tweaks to your own style, your own technique, so that you become part of a team and not just one more person in the boat. So.
And did the coaches, as you progressed and made the team and started a race, did the coaches make clear what those things were? How did you figure those things out? You were coachable, but how did you figure out to what you're being coachable to?
Well, I think a big part of it was just the experience and having already been there. But going into it, I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't realize, how intense the other athletes were. I didn't realize how hard they trained, how they trained, just some of the technical expectations. So just having been there was a big part of it. But I think equally much of a part of it was what I took away from that. So it wasn't just, a checklist of I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, but it was also just the drive, I want to be here. I want to be one of these people. I want to, be part of this club because I know I can. And, I know that it's something within my ability. And because it's a challenge that I set for myself, and I wanted to give it a swing. So to start with, the use of the word failure there is very interesting. I don't know if, like, ever since I've been thinking about this whole, my approach to training, everything like that, and how I've progressed through my paddling career, I found that I have a very different approach than a lot of people to failure. I don't really consider there ever to be such thing as a personal failure. Like I'll never be one to stand up and say I failed. I set myself a goal and I failed to reach that goal. That to me is unnecessarily negative, I guess. Like for me, it's not about setting and attaining goals. It's really more about the journey as opposed to the destination. So, you can have disappointing performances for sure, but I've always approached them in positive terms. They're always sources of lessons. They're cues to tweak things going forward. So they're positive in that sense. But I try never to dwell on a bad outcome. So, failing to make the team in and of itself, yeah, okay, maybe it was, I felt bad after I got the letter, but it has no significance in and of itself. It's only real value that fact is as a lesson for the future. What can you take from that to make yourself a better person? There's no logical sense in dwelling on the fact that you didn't do what you had originally set out to do. And I think that approaching, disappointing performances in that way, without focusing on the failure element, really avoids or helps to avoid the negative reactions and negative spirals that some people seem to get stuck in after they fail to meet a goal that they've set for themselves. So for me anyways, I find that taking the positive from these kinds of situations really allows me to focus more on the constructive aspects of the experience rather than getting bogged down in self-recriminations or soul-searching, error-seeking, blame games, that sort of thing. Like it's always just, okay, it's done. What's next? How can I learn from this and move forward?
And so do you journal, or what does self-reflection look like to you?
Well, I don't journal per se. I've been told it's a great tool for building self-awareness to help yourself understand, why you're in a bad place, why you're in a good place, to help you understand yourself. I don't go through the act of physically journaling. I'm not organized enough for that, but maybe someday I will. But I certainly do reflect a lot. I try to view everything as a learning experience, and even in training, I try very hard to stay aware of my mental and physical state so that I can reflect on them later and try to derive from them what lessons I can. Actually, now that you mention it, I do I do keep a sort of a training journal. So dragon boat obviously is a very technical sport. You're repeating the same motion more or less 200 times in the course of a race. And I found that my technique has improved basically through a series of epiphanies over the years. So I'll try new things in training, or I'll hear new ideas from coaches and get thinking about my stroke in different ways. And if something really works, I'll take a piece of paper and I'll write it down, or I'll draw a picture illustrating it so that I can come back to it later. I find it really works, both because I have a terrible memory, like I said, and because the act of writing it down really helps me think it through and make sure I understand it and why it works. So I actually started doing this shortly after I started with Oil City Crew in Edmonton 10 years ago, or whatever it is now. And I actually have a pretty good stack of paper now, just a catalog of 10 years of lessons learned. And believe it or not, I do still go back and review all that stuff on a regular basis. At the beginning of every year, just because we're off the water for half the year, so it helps to remember where I left off in October. And I have no plans to stop that form of journaling, at least. So yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And so the next time I see you, I want to be able to flip through that special book. So that's
if
good
you can
stuff.
read my writing, go for it. Yeah.
So if we move forward into you're racing at various events, and you medaled many times, and you've been a gold medalist, which makes you a world champion, which is amazing. You've been through the highs, and you've been through some lows too, I know. So can you tell me about a time where the team, and it's a team of just 20 elite athletes, the very best in Canada, suffered a significant setback, but then rebounded?
We don't have a lot of, I haven't been through a lot of examples of things going really terribly wrong at that level and then having to be rescued. We have had bad races, and the coaches have responded in various ways. I remember we had one rare dressing down at the most recent World Championships in Thailand. One of the coaches just took us aside and basically just tore a strip off of us. We got into the race. Either we were too arrogant, we were too aggressive, we were just living up in our own heads and forgotten about our technique, we'd forgotten about our race plan, and we just didn't perform. So the coach just took us aside and really, this was 20 guys. This is the open road boat. Just tore a strip off us more or less. Knocked some humility back into us and reminded us, you guys are not here because you're better than everybody else. You guys are here because you work as a team better than, you're only here because you work as a team. And as soon as you start getting away from that, then you're just 20 guys in a boat, and your value goes down proportionally. Your ability goes down if you're not maintaining that humility and that as soon as you start getting away from yourself, more or less. So yeah.
Some of the teamwork phrases that are out there can sound like cliches, but it sounds like you and your team really lived and saw the consequences. And so how did the team rebound after that dressing down? Were you able as a group to respond?
We did. Yeah. I remember our next race. I can't remember exactly what race that was, but I think it was a semi. So the next race was the final, and I remember it being a very clean final. I can't remember how we did exactly, but we didn't have any more issues like that, at least for the rest of that event. And I think that was probably the lowest point of the whole World Champs for us as a boat. So we came out of it. We all learned something from it, and we factored it in. And
do you have a daily habit that you regularly do?
I don't really, beyond getting up in the morning and making breakfast. I'm not what you call a natural planner, and I have a very I guess just between work and life, I don't have it's a very unpredictable job that I have. So most days when I get to bed, I don't know if I'll be getting home at 6 or at 2 in the morning. It just depends on what happens that day. I don't even know if I'll be able to make it to the gym or to the lake. And this is no, I wouldn't say I really have a habit, but I have developed a couple of tricks, I guess, that help me maintain a little bit of order. And one of the big ones is scheduling, making a schedule. So, even if, especially if you're really busy or you tend to get absorbed in projects like I do and you have a hard time switching gears, just setting out every day in a schedule can help you remember everything you have to do and to make time for it all, so that instead of having a big list of things that you have to get done this week or today or something like that, you have, it's all set out there for you. So that has a couple of advantages. Obviously it lists things off for you, and even just the act of putting in the work to make the schedule, makes it that much harder to skip a workout, because you're gonna have to go back and rejig everything in order to fit it back in. So it helps to make some order out of chaos, which is, I think, the best that I can really do at this stage with the career that I'm in. So, and it's worked reasonably well so far.
And so what do you do if you have a really long day and you're not able to fit in a workout? How do you make up for that? Being a member of the national team, and I'd assume you want to continue to be a member of the national team. How do you adjust then, given the demands of your job?
Well, number one is you try not to skip them. You go out of your way, even if you have to jump out in the middle of a project, if you can spare the hour to go across the street to the gym, or the hour and a half, and get in and work out or go for a run or whatever it is, you do it. Or if that means, if you do have to skip something, you make time for it later on, and you absolutely do it. If that means you have to be up at 5:30 or 6 the next morning to go for a run before you go into work, you do it. Like the important thing is getting everything in and keeping it, properly spaced. So you have all your rest, and you have all your work in. But yeah, like not allowing your work to take over and to displace these other important things in life. It's easy enough when you only really have the one competing factor in work. But I'm lucky in that regard. Like I'm only now starting to have my relationship right now is with another athlete, and so we both get it. Whereas previously it's been difficult to strike that balance when you're also trying to balance somebody else's interests who doesn't quite get it and doesn't understand the lifestyle, doesn't understand the commitment level and all that. So it helps to keep things as simple as possible. But yeah, the important thing is not to try as hard as you can to satisfy all masters, I guess.
So you'll do your darndest to fit in your workout, even if you're getting home at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
And then rest becomes an issue at some point, but
right.
That's what. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone who competes in sport knows this feeling, but very few know this feeling at an international world championship. You've trained months or years. You've gone through ups and downs. Maybe you've got a dressing down from the coach. You line up for the final, you're in a competition, you're going to the start line, and you feel the butterflies starting to fly inside of you. What way have you found to deliver and perform kind of in that moment?
Well, in my experience, I've really identified two different types of butterflies. They arise for different reasons and they're dealt with differently. They have different effects. The first I would consider are the nervous butterflies. So these are the butterflies that are, wow, I'm finally here. This is it. This is everything that I've worked so hard for. The self-doubt. Am I good enough to be here? I really hope I don't screw up. The sort of white knuckly nervous type. The cure for those ones is just simply confidence, which comes from preparation and from experience. So training hard and knowing that you've trained hard, with a good coach and a strong team, genuinely believing that you're ready to compete, is beyond a doubt the best cure for nerves of the line. If you've done all you can do, all that remains to you is to go out and do it, right? And obviously, the more often you get to that start line, the less novelty there is, and the more you're able to banish those kinds of nerves and focus on your race. So I consider that first type of the nervous butterflies, they're probably the more serious of the two, but they're also, I'd say, the easier of the two to deal with. The second type doesn't go away really, but it's also a lot less harmful and can actually help you in a race. And these are the butterflies you get from the adrenaline rush of being lined up there against the best. And that's not just, at international level. Like it can be in a local festival. It can be just, lining up for a time trial against some of the fastest people on your team. You're lined up there. You're ready to show what you've got. It's the adrenaline. It's not the nerves. It's the juice. It's the fun. And I've read studies that show that these aren't bad butterflies at all. That the positive and the fun kind of energy that they provide is exactly what you want to be experiencing during a race. You want to feel the same at a world championship as you feel when you're on your home lake challenging a couple of friends to a sprint. So you want to be light, you want to be buoyant, you want to almost be laughing. You want to be serious, but at the same time, you don't want it to be like a negative seriousness. You want it just to be an alertness, so you can go out and focus on your race plan, focus on your technique, and have fun and not be dragged down by doubts or anger. And I guess I do have a story here from national team that is quite relevant. I did learn the importance of the second kind of butterflies the hard way. At my first Worlds, this was in Welland in 2015. We were warming up for one of our finals. I think it was a 500 meter, but I can't remember what it was. And the team was obviously very pumped. we'd made the grand final for this event. Someone had put on some really loud music, some really angry music, and we were all just, doing our warm-ups and just getting ready. And it was a lot of adrenaline in the air, but it was a noticeably negative kind of energy. It was very, kill, very aggressive. Everybody was full of adrenaline, but nobody was smiling. Hardly anyone was even talking. And, when we went into the tent to line up and get into our boat with the other teams, it was really palpable. The other teams were laughing and joking and singing, having a great time, even right before a final. And then here's Canada sitting in the middle, a bunch of sour faces, everybody's, jumping and scowling and getting ready to go.
Yeah.
And, looking and feeling like a bunch of murderers. And we ended up having an absolutely terrible race. That was one of the worst races I think I've had at that level. We gave way too much juice at the start. We didn't follow our race plan. We tried to muscle it, and we forgot our technique, which, as I'm sure you'll certainly appreciate, Darwin, is a death sentence in a race like that. And we finished out of the medals. I think the national team has certainly since learned from that experience. The people who were there, I think we all took the same lesson from it. Like, the angry music is out, the sour faces are out. We approach our finals with a lot more levity, I think, now than we did before. And again, experience is a big part of this, but I think a lot of it is learned as well. So now we feel great going out to the line, and we're better able to harness those positive butterflies and tack them onto our boat and help use them to help bring us forward. And I guess personally, ever since then, I've kept a very simple image in my head every time I approach a start line. It's a brilliant summer day on my home lake in Calgary. It's warm and sunny out. I'm pulling up at the start line with a couple of good friends, and we're about to have just a just for fun race. No meaning, just, hey, let's go out and have a race. We're laughing, we're joking amongst ourselves, but in my head, I got my race plan ready. I'm ready to have a good, sharp, fun race. And to this day, like, even if I'm in a boat that I feel is getting too serious or too stressed, I always try to remind them of the same thing. It's just a race. You've run many of these before in your life. Trust your training, trust the race plan, trust the coach. Let's all just go out and have fun. So have fun. Those, I think, are probably the two most important words that I carry with me to any race.
So you trust the work you've put in, and really it's embracing the positivity of what you're doing, and that helps. Yeah.
Like, it's about confidence first and foremost, like just knowing that you've done your best, and just not taking it too seriously, and not being there to have a good time. So that's really the reason that any of us do this, right? Like, I don't compete at this level because it's good for my health. I compete at this level because I enjoy it. And if I was a rec athlete, I'd be doing it because I enjoyed it. So I think just approaching it on that level, just asking yourself, why do I do this? Why do I do it? Because it's fun. Let's go and have fun.
And so you reference your teammates, and it seems like a cohesive group that you race with and have come to know. If you think of maybe one of your teammates who is you view as one of your better teammates for whatever reason, what makes them a good teammate?
Andrea Plevin, she's my girlfriend, and she really struck me from the get-go. I met her on the team, and what really stuck out to me about her, even compared to the crazy personalities on that team, was her ability to plan, her phenomenal dedication to the team and to her training, and just the drive. Like, she's the kind of person that never misses a workout, schedules 2 of them a day. I don't even know where she gets the energy to do them all. But she always has a surplus of it, always needs to be moving forward, has accomplished a ton just through, sheer force of will and force of personality. And to me anyway, she stands out even amongst that bunch of nuts on the national team. Like, everybody up there trains incredibly hard and works incredibly hard, but some people just stand out, and as having superior organizational skills or drive, and she was certainly one of them. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you've learned, you've come a long way from that person that was on that rec team years ago when we first met. And you've picked up a lot of things along the way. What are you learning now?
Well, currently, I think the big thing is I'm learning to adjust and to adapt to this new reality that we have going on around us, for better or for worse. That wasn't the plan for this year, but it certainly is now.
And so you'd be referring to the self-isolation in case someone's listening to this in the future.
Yeah. Self-isolation and all the meanings that has. So the biggest thing for me that I haven't really experienced yet is the change in training style that it's required. So gyms are closed. I'm a gym rat. I'm typically one of the bigger guys on the team. I'm there partly because of my strength. So being in the gym is important. But of course the gyms are closed. We've had to switch tacks, a lot more bodyweight stuff, a lot more running, a lot more focus on aerobic and anaerobic capacity. I think I'm at a better spot in terms of my cardiovascular health now than I've ever been, even if, my strength might be sliding. We're not entirely sure yet. I'm going to wait until the gym opens back up to see exactly how much that's suffered, and particularly how much my boat speed has changed, if at all. If it turns out that, and yeah, so it's an interesting experiment because I think it's allowing me, anyways, to really see, do I really need a ridiculous bench press or ridiculous pull down or pull up numbers in order to move the boat quickly, or can I get away with that? More with or is it more a function of technique and cardio and just being able to pick a more aggressive race plan because I have the cardio building blocks. So this is going to be a very interesting experience. Yeah.
And so you found a way to keep going, which is totally awesome. That you're actually improving your cardio is really impressive, by the way. And when we're in self-isolation. So kudos to you. So for this next question, I'm not fishing for a compliment. It's really that we're looking for some traits in coaches or coaching, either someone who coaches or someone who's looking to receive coaching, maybe. What traits do you appreciate in the best coaches that you've had, or maybe some of the best coaching snippets that you've had, however you want to conceptualize this? What are some traits? What does that look like?
Well, I've had a number of very good coaches over the years, and you mentioned this earlier, and I gave a bit of thought to it. There's really, I think, two main traits that I would identify with. There are two main traits that mean the most to me as an athlete. I can't speak for everybody, but that have meant the most to me over the years, and those are accessibility and leading by example. So in terms of accessibility, I'm having a coach that recognizes that performing at your best, whether you're an international athlete or just somebody who's pushing themselves from whatever their normal was, trying to reach a new level, it comes at a significant personal cost. That's in terms of time, in terms of energy, frustration, uncertainty, pain. It's not necessarily a pleasant experience, and having a coach who is open to talking about that stuff and is there as a support can really be helpful to an athlete, especially an athlete who doesn't necessarily have a strong support network or doesn't have a lot of people around them that understand that lifestyle, that situation, what they're going through. Even if you never take the coach up on that, just knowing that there's somebody there to support you can be tremendously helpful in my experience. And the other characteristic, I think, leading by example. So you have some coaches that they follow along with the training because they're athletes themselves. I've had some of those, or make equivalent sacrifices. Like they're the people that you follow, not just because they tell you what to do, but because they're showing you this can be done, or I'm taking this seriously enough to make sacrifices X, Y, and Z, and so what are your excuses for not doing that? And I like, again, just to throw in another Darwin anecdote here, I remember during 2011 Nationals, Darwin was our drummer as well as our coach, and he lost a lot of weight, looked like an unhealthy amount of weight, to sit at the front of that boat and not weigh us down. And I distinctly remember right after the last race finished, I believe we hit up a McDonald's almost immediately. And Darwin ate some actual food for the first time in 6 months. So yeah, it's very inspiring, I think, to have the coach, even if the coach isn't actively paddling there with you and going through all the workouts with you, that they are obviously taking it as seriously as you are. That as an athlete, I find that much, or very inspiring to follow.
That is awesome, Jordan. This has been so much fun. So just stay on the line, and as I wrap up, and we can chat after a little bit. But thank you all so much for listening and viewing. If you want to know more about this topic or others, go to my website, evolutionofleaders.com. Make sure you get 1% better today, and tune in again on next week's Evolution of Leaders podcast. Thanks for listening. Jordan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Darwin. It's always a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. Now, when you see someone with potential and you help them to grow and surpass you, and anyone who's had an athlete become a world champ knows what I'm talking about, I don't know if there's a greater feeling. I remember Jordan, when I first met him, was a little apprehensive about joining a competitive team. And if you've ever gone from a rec to a competitive team, you know the nervous feelings. But I was just really enthralled with how he reframed failure in terms of positivity and as a source of lessons. He didn't dwell on things that were negative. And what's very interesting to me as a coach, not an athletic coach, but as a leadership career coach, was when he had a moment of self-awareness, reflecting on reflection, as it were. Done properly, coaching is about that. Coaching opens doors to your self-awareness, and if you're willing to look, you could be a world champion, you could be a weekend warrior, someone that's looking to get promoted or get hired. Coaching can help with that, and I am a leadership and career coach. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I would love to interact with you. Please contact me if you'd like to hear more. My website is evolutionofleaders.com. Please like and share if you enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jordan.